There is an almost imperceptible yet devastating moment when a woman feels that something has changed. The man who once seemed so present begins to drift away. Suddenly, his messages take longer to arrive, his words sound colder, his attention is no longer so easily obtained. And in that instant, a shadow falls, anxiety, fear, and the feeling of loss begin to consume from within. Many women, driven by that deep terror of losing him, make the most human and yet the most counterproductive mistake. They try to do more. They send messages, seek explanations, propose meetings, try to reignite what they feel slipping through their fingers. But this insistence, although born from love and fear, only succeeds in accelerating the fall. Why? Because for a man, excessive neediness is not attraction, it is pressure. It is not love, it is a burden. Jung, in his book The Dynamics of the Unconscious, explains that everything the soul clutches too tightly tends to slip away like sand between the fingers. The more need we show, the faster we risk losing what we are trying to hold on to. What we often fail to understand is that in male psychology, what is hard to attain holds more value. A man feels more desire for what he senses he could lose, not for what he perceives as guaranteed. A woman who makes herself too available, too attentive, without leaving room for absence, eventually becomes emotionally invisible. Overexposure kills mystery, and mystery is the oxygen of desire. Imagine a precious jewel displayed on every corner. Over time, it loses its value in the eyes of those who see it. But if that jewel is unique, rare, difficult to obtain, it becomes coveted, almost sacred. This is how human desire works. This is how male desire works. Today I will show you how to radically change this dynamic, not through cheap games or manipulations, but from a place of profound emotional wisdom. You will learn the art of strategic silence, not as a punishment but as an act of self-love. You will understand how to invest all that energy into yourself until you become a woman so complete, so magnetic, so fulfilled that his return, if it happens, will be a free choice, not the result of pressure. And if he doesn't come back, you will have won someone far more important, yourself. Get ready? Because once you understand this, you will never chase again. You will learn to attract. When a man starts to pull away, the first emotional reaction many women experience is a profound sense of loss. It's not just the loss of the man himself, but the loss of the illusion of the imagined future moments, of the emotional safe place his presence represented. This loss, although intangible, hits with brutal force. Anxiety settles in silently. Every minute without a reply feels like an eternity. Every cold or distant conversation is analyzed and reanalyzed, searching for signs, explanations, someone to blame. The mind enters an endless loop. What did I do wrong? How can I fix it? How do I make things go back to how they were? And with each thought, the heart shrinks a little more. Jung, in his work, Psychological Types, warns us that man suffers because he mistakenly interprets what happens within himself as something happening outside of him. In other words, we believe that the cause of our suffering lies in the other, when in reality it is an internal battle between our unmet desires and our perception of self-worth. This anxiety and helplessness are not only painful, but also emotionally dangerous. Under their influence, many women fall into behaviors they would never have considered from a balanced emotional state. Begging for attention, persistently questioning, seeking answers where there is only silence. And the more one acts from that place of fear and need, the more the man's perception of the woman deteriorates. Because in his instinctive psychology, a man does not feel attraction towards someone who seems to need him to survive. Neediness smells of desperation, and desperation repels human desire. As Jung aptly points out in The Psychology of the Unconscious, desire is born from mystery, from longing, from the space between the self and the other, not from control or possession. Thus, without realizing it, when we try to force the connection we feel is breaking, we end up tearing it even more. We want to get closer, but in that desperate attempt, we move further away. We want to hold on, but the fear of losing makes him run. That's why the first step is not to do more, the first step is to stop. Breathe, acknowledge the pain, yes, but do not act from it. Because every action driven by fear is another brick in the wall now separating us from what we desire. It is an act of immense courage to stop in the middle of anxiety, and paradoxically, it is the first act of true self-love, not towards him but towards ourselves. Faced with the fear of losing a man who is starting to pull away, many women believe the solution is to intensify their efforts. It's an almost instinctive impulse. If I show myself more present, more loving, more available, he will remember why he loved me and return. But this reasoning, although it seems logical from a place of pain, actually goes directly against male psychology. Each extra message, each forced attempt at connection, each search for validation does not rebuild the bond, it erodes it, because the underlying message the man perceives is not love, but neediness. It's not connection, but lack. It's important to understand that human beings, men and women alike, perceive emotional vibrations long before we process them rationally. He doesn't pull away because he analyzes you coldly. He pulls away because something in his instinct screams that something has changed. Carl Jung, in Symbols of Transformation, teaches that what we deny subjugates us, and what we accept transforms us. Denying the anxiety we feel pushes us to act out of desperation. Accepting it, on the other hand, gives us the chance to transform it into inner power. When we refuse to accept the possibility of losing him, we become prisoners of fear, and that fear seeps into every word, every gesture, every insistence. And a man, even without consciously knowing it, feels repelled by that energy. Imagine for a moment a flower. A flower does not run after bees. It does not beg to be pollinated. It remains in its essence, open, beautiful, vibrant, allowing the bees to discover and value it for what it is. This is how feminine self-love should be, a quiet force, not a desperate chase. When a woman throws herself into doing more, writing, calling, seeking forced encounters, she unconsciously sends a devastating message. Without you, I am not enough. And that message destroys attraction at its very root. The paradox is that the more a woman tries to hold on to the connection through insistence, the faster she pushes the man away. Because in the male mind, conquest is essential. They do not value what they feel is guaranteed. Jung, in The Ego and the Unconscious, points out that the soul instinctively seeks what it has not yet possessed, because in desire lies its vital impulse. A man desires what represents an emotional challenge, something he must conquer again and again. Forcing someone's presence is like trying to hold water in your hands by squeezing tighter. The more force you apply, the faster it slips away. It's an act of desperation that ends up stealing your own emotional dignity. Neediness creates emotional dependence, and dependence inevitably destroys respect. When a man perceives that a woman needs his presence to feel valuable, his instinct drives him to seek freedom, because his unconscious tells him that there is no genuine admiration there, but rather an invisible demand that suffocates him. That's why the key is not to do more. It's not to chase after him, to beg for attention, or to try to prove your worth. The real power lies in withdrawing, in reconnecting with yourself, in stopping the need for external validation. When a woman stops fighting to be chosen and starts choosing herself, something changes radically. Her energy transforms. She stops being a need and becomes a gift. She stops being an obligation and becomes an irresistible choice. When the feminine soul connects with its own worth, it begins to emit a different frequency, a blend of serenity, mystery, and fulfillment that cannot be ignored. This energy not only attracts men, but also acts as a filter, because a man who is not ready for a woman in her power will not be able to sustain her presence. It's not about pretending to be indifferent or playing mind games. It's about a real change within you, a change that silently says, I desire you, but I don't need you. I can love you, but I will not lose my soul to keep you. And it is at that moment, when you no longer fight, when you no longer beg, when you have found your own center, that the true magic happens. The man who feels your absence not as a strategy, but as a natural consequence of your self-love will begin to see in you something far more valuable than he had ever perceived, a complete, free, powerful woman. And then, and only then, can a new connection arise, not based on fear, but on admiration, not based on lack, but on genuine desire. The mistake of doing more to avoid losing him may seem, in the midst of pain, like the only way out. But now you know the truth. You should not do more for him. You should do more for yourself. There is a fundamental truth in human nature. We value more what is scarce. This law governs not only the economy but also the emotional and relational world. What is offered in excess, what is always available, ends up being underestimated. Love, desire, and admiration are fed by the sense of exclusivity, of conquest, of the possibility of loss. And this is even more true in male psychology. A man values what he feels he cannot fully possess. He appreciates what he must continually conquer. When a woman becomes too available, too predictable, too devoted, she unconsciously ceases to represent an emotional challenge. And when there is no challenge, there is no drive to conquer. When there is no conquest, attraction weakens. Carl Jung, in his book The Psychology of the Unconscious, explains that true desire is born from longing, and longing only exists within emotional distance. When we are too close, too available, we kill that necessary distance for desire to flourish. Think of a rare gem hidden deep within an inaccessible cave. Those who know of its existence are willing to take risks to explore, to invest time and effort to reach it. Now imagine that same gem offered for free on an ordinary table, accessible to anyone without any effort. The perceived value changes, not because the gem is different, but because the perception of its rarity has changed. The same happens in emotional dynamics. A woman who preserves her mystery, her inner world, her rich and independent life, becomes a gem that is hard to reach, not because she plays games, but because her fullness makes her inaccessible to anyone who is not willing to earn her. Over-availability sends another dangerous message for the dynamics of attraction. It transmits that your time, your attention, your love are available to anyone, without conditions, without needing to be earned. And in the male unconscious, this reduces your value. A man is not only seeking love, he seeks admiration. He wants to feel that he has won something valuable, that his presence, effort, and dedication have a purpose. If he perceives that he doesn't need to make an effort, that your love is already guaranteed, his vital drive for conquest dulls. Not because he is a bad man, but because it is part of his instinctive nature. Jung states it precisely in Symbols of Transformation. Passion ignites in the human heart when the object of desire is wrapped in mystery and inaccessibility. When a woman disappears as an emotional challenge, desire also disappears. Many times, in the name of love, a woman gives all her time, her attention, her social life, her projects, and without realizing it, she places the man at the center of her existence. This devotion, though noble in its intention, is toxic for attraction. A woman who stays active in her own world, who nurtures friendships, pursues passions, invests in her personal growth, sends a much more powerful message. I choose you because I want to, not because I need to, and that emotional freedom is profoundly seductive. Do you want to be unforgettable to a man? Don't give him your life. Give him the opportunity to be part of it without making him its absolute center. Be a complete universe he wishes to orbit, not a satellite revolving around him. The perfect balance lies in showing sincere interest without dependency, in demonstrating affection without urgency, in offering presence without unconditional availability. When a woman learns this art, the art of being generous in love but selective with her energy, her value automatically rises in any man's eyes, not because she manipulated him, but because she restored the natural balance between giving and receiving, between presence and mystery. Remember, what is common is forgotten. What is rare is treasured. You are not here to be easily obtained. You are here to be valued, admired, and above all, respected. When a woman feels that a special man is starting to drift away, the first natural, almost uncontrollable impulse is to try to close that distance with words, explanations, justifications, or promises. It is an impulse born from a deep fear of losing what once seemed secure. However, in the subtle art of human relationships, there exists a force far more powerful than the attempt to hold on. Strategic silence. We are not talking about a silence filled with resentment or designed as punishment. It's not about ignoring to hurt or manipulate, but making a conscious act of emotional wisdom. As Jung stated in The Dynamics of the Unconscious, resisting an impulse is not repression, it is transformation. True silence is a transformation of anxiety into serenity, of need into power. It is in silence that who you truly are is revealed. A woman who invests in herself, who keeps learning, who is not afraid to grow, radiates an irresistible vibration of silent strength. She doesn't need to talk about her worth. She radiates it. On the deepest level, the soul must also be nourished, reconnecting with authentic friendships, dedicating time to causes that inspire you, surrounding yourself with beauty, art, nature, everything that reminds you that your life has a greater purpose than simply being loved by someone else. The energy that was once directed toward him now becomes a centrifugal force that builds your own universe. And when a woman becomes her own universe, when her happiness no longer depends on external factors, something extraordinary happens. Her vibration rises to a level that not only attracts, but also filters, because not all men will be able to rise to the level of a woman who no longer needs to be chosen. It's no coincidence that when a woman focuses on her personal expansion, those who once took her for granted begin to feel her absence as a void that's hard to ignore, because she is no longer the same. She has evolved, she has been reborn. And she didn't do it to prove anything to anyone. She did it because, somewhere in the pain, she understood a radical truth. The most important person who needed to choose her was herself. Rebuilding yourself doesn't mean closing your heart or becoming cold. It means loving with an open heart but with your feet firmly on the ground. It means being able to receive love without losing yourself in the process. It means looking love in the eyes and saying, "I love you, but I don't need you to be who I am." On this new path, the man who returns, if he does, will find a different woman, a woman who can love him deeply, but who is no longer willing to lose herself for anyone. And if he doesn't return, it won't matter, because she will have found something far greater: her own life, her purpose, her happiness. Jung summarizes it beautifully in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, when he states, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." You have chosen the path of awakening, the path of courage, and every step in your rebuilding will be a silent victory that will resonate throughout your entire being. Today you know that it is not about getting him back, it is about getting yourself back. Mastering your emotions does not mean repressing or denying them, it means learning to navigate through them with awareness, strength, and dignity. In the process of reclaiming personal power, the difference between an unforgettable woman and a forgotten one lies in her ability to master her emotional impulses, especially during moments of greatest vulnerability. When a man begins to pull away, a woman's instinctive desire is to seek answers, to force encounters, to demand explanations. It is human. It is understandable. However, it is precisely in these moments that true emotional value is defined, not by giving in to the impulse to act out of fear, but by choosing to act out of awareness and self-love. Carl Jung, in The Ego and the Unconscious, points out that the greatest obstacle to progress is the projection of our internal conflicts onto the external world. If we allow anxiety to direct our actions, we project that anguish onto the other, burdening the relationship with unsustainable pressure. But if we are capable of holding ourselves emotionally, without demanding, without chasing, without begging, then we rise above the storm and become a beacon of stability. Emotional mastery is therefore the ability to observe the inner storm without becoming it. It is knowing that feeling fear, sadness, or uncertainty is natural, but acting impulsively from those emotions only distances us from what we truly desire, building healthy, loving relationships based on mutual respect. This is where we must understand the crucial difference between healthy desire and toxic attachment. Wanting someone is natural, even beautiful. But depending emotionally on their presence to feel valuable destroys any possibility of authentic love. Attachment, unlike desire, stems from internal lack. It makes us believe that our happiness depends on another person, and by surrendering our power in that way, we become vulnerable, anxious, and ultimately less attractive. A woman who masters her emotions does not deny her feelings, but she also does not let them control her. She can miss a man deeply, yet still choose not to call him. She can long for a response, yet still choose silence. She can feel the impulse to reach out, yet still choose to remain centered. This inner strength is neither cold nor distant. It is the highest expression of self-love. It is the ability to say to oneself, "My worth does not change with the presence or absence of anyone. I am enough. I am whole." And this energy is so powerful, so magnetic, that it transcends words. It can be felt in the way you walk, in your gaze, in the way you exist in the world. A woman who does not need to be chosen to know her worth emits a vibration that no man can ignore. Emotional mastery not only transforms dynamics with others, it transforms your entire life. It frees you from the roller coaster of emotions dependent on external factors and places you firmly in the driver's seat of your emotional destiny. And when a woman reaches this level of maturity, she stops being just an option and becomes a conscious choice, sought after, admired. Jung also reminds us in the psychology of transference that he who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens. Emotional mastery is precisely that awakening, to stop seeking outside what can only be found within. Today you know that mastering your emotions is not about denying your humanity, but honoring it. It's not about suppressing your desires, but recognizing them without allowing them to define your worth. It's not about being insensitive, it's about being invincible. Because in the end, the woman who masters her inner world is the woman who conquers the outer world without needing to chase it. There comes an inevitable and blessed moment in the journey of a woman who has worked on herself when she understands a liberating truth. She is not here to be chosen by anyone. She is here to choose herself every day, to stay true to her essence, to build a life so rich, so full, and so authentic that her well-being no longer depends on the presence or absence of another human being. When a woman reaches this level of consciousness, her energy changes radically. She no longer presents herself to the world seeking approval, love, or validation. She presents herself as a source of self-love so powerful that those around her have only two options: rise to meet her or walk away. And in both possibilities, she wins. Carl Jung, in Memories, Dreams, Reflections, tells us that the unlived life is a disease from which one can die. Living while waiting to be chosen, postponing your happiness until someone notices you, approves of you, or validates you, is to die slowly. Choosing yourself, on the other hand, is to heal. It is to live. When a woman stops trying to be a man's option and instead becomes the prize that only the truly worthy can attain, something powerful happens. She stops being a passive possibility in others' minds and becomes an unforgettable presence. She does not beg for love, does not plead for attention, does not compete, does not chase. She simply is. And in that authenticity lies her irresistible magnetism. If he returns, it will be because in your absence, he felt the void of not having you, not the burden of being pursued. It will be because, in the silence of your withdrawal, he realized that no one else radiated the same light, the same serene strength that you possess. And if he does not return, you will understand that he was never truly yours, and that your journey, far from being in vain, has led you back to yourself. Because in this process, what you have gained is priceless. Your dignity, your inner peace, your emotional freedom. Always remember, you are not here to be completed by anyone. You are already complete. You are not here to be validated. Your existence alone is validation enough. You are not here to live through the eyes of another. You are here to look at your own reflection and smile with pride. Jung said that those who do not become their true selves become echoes of others' expectations. Today, you choose to be a voice, not an echo. A path, not someone else's destination. It is in this moment, when you no longer need to be chosen, that your energy becomes so authentic, so radiant, so magnetic, that those who once took you for granted will feel your absence as an impossible void to ignore. But by then it will no longer be about them, it will be about you, about the unbreakable love you have finally planted and cultivated in the one place it can never be taken from, within yourself. If this message resonated with you and inspired you to see yourself through new eyes, subscribe now and join me on this journey of personal power, self-love, and transformation. Because this is only the beginning of your best version.